Wonderful, wonderful weekend. Evan and Tiki here on the Fan. Day one of the big reveal. Evan and Tiki's top 20. We will unveil the top 20 New York draft picks of the last 50 years, and the process begins today at 4 o'clock, where we will reveal number 20, number 19, number 18, and number 17. We'll get to the baseballs. The show rolls on. We'll get to Aaron Rodgers showing up to work today. Doc Gooden Day. There's a lot to get to. But yesterday afternoon, and sometimes I'm going to be on this radio station and I am the enemy of the people, the enemy of the Knicks fan. And then there are days in which I support you because I call it like it is. And today is one of those days where I am you. You are me. I am here to hold up the light and the candle for Knicks fans all around this city. And I know what I'm about to say. Maybe you haven't even thought about. Maybe you haven't even realized it. Maybe you don't want to say it because you'll be mocked by people. But I'll say it for you as an independent basketball observer. The New York Knicks got screwed. And it's not fair.
How did they get screwed?
Oh, I'll tell you why, Tiki.
They won a basketball game because they were trying to win a basketball game.
Yes.
They don't know any other way how to play than to try to win a basketball game.
And they did a great job of doing that.
Even if they should have tried to lose that basketball game.
Well, I'm not suggesting the Knicks should have tried to have lost yesterday's game, but here's what I will tell you. Yesterday afternoon, the NBA did a marvelous job by having everybody play together at the same time. Mm-hmm. And while I was sitting there watching the Mets and the Royals battle it out in a 0-0 tie, Dad and I, that's my dad, sat there perusing the NBA and going through all the different scenarios that were in front of the New York Knicks. And once the final 2 minutes of that excellently played, hard-fought basketball game was occurring between the Chicago Bulls and the New York Knicks, it was obvious what the Knicks' circumstance was. If they win, they're the 2 seed. Great. Sounds like a prize. If they lose, they're the 3 seed, and they play a very inexperienced but high-octane offense in the Indiana Pacers. I, as a Knick hater, said to my dad, wow, they put me in a weird spot. Let's go Knicks. Because I know that Miami or Philadelphia is a much tougher matchup in the first round. Doesn't mean you can't win it. Just means it's a tougher matchup. I admire Tom Thibodeau. I admire that he didn't pull the crap that we saw in Cleveland. If you don't know, the Cavaliers quit. The Cavaliers decided we don't want to play basketball anymore, and they allowed the Charlotte Hornets to whip that ass. The Knicks don't quit because the Knicks are dogs, and because the Knicks are dudes. And because of that, despite some mistakes in overtime, the Josh Hart turnover, the Knicks found a way. And their reward sucks. And it's not just them. The reward for the Celtics sucks. The reward for Denver and OKC sucks. And so in this odd year of the NBA, where the Knicks are going to have their most difficult first-round matchup as a reward for being the 2 seed, I'm here to tell you this should be the final year this ever happens. The NBA...
What are they going to do about it?
Oh, I'll tell you what they'll do about it. Close your eyes, everybody. The New York Knicks earned a 2 seed in the Eastern Conference. After the play-in tournament is over, there's going to be a TV special on TNT where the Boston Celtics will come up to a podium and they will get to select their first-round opponent amongst the 5, 6, 7, and 8 seeds.
Come on.
Once the Celtics pick their opponent, the New York Knicks are on the clock. And the New York Knicks get to decide, and we could all debate it, obviously. We're going to have debates today on who you'd rather play. But the Knicks then get to decide who they want to play, because that's a reward. The Knicks have not been given a reward. The Knicks got screwed. And it doesn't mean they're going to lose in the first round, but admit this, Knicks fans, because I'm looking out for you. You may not lose in the first round, but you have a much more difficult first-round matchup because you got the 2 seed.
Yeah.
How is that fair? How is that right? The NBA needs to look at how things transpired this year and make a change.
Yeah, the same thing applies to the Denver in the Western Conference.
Correct.
They're going to end up playing the winner of the New Orleans Pelicans or the LA Lakers.
Correct.
And, yes, they haven't had the greatest seasons all season long, but still, it's the Lakers and it's the Pelicans who could potentially knock you off. The only problem with your plan, and it's an interesting plan, the only problem with it is that if you are the Boston Celtics, or in this case, the New York Knicks, because that's who we're really concerned about, and you stand up at a podium and say, I would like to take on let's say the Chicago Bulls get through. I want to take on the Chicago Bulls. And they're the 8th seed. They're the lowest seed. They've won the least amount of games of teams in the postseason. We want the Chicago Bulls. If you're now the Chicago Bulls, isn't that just extra motivation? Now, it doesn't matter that the Knicks are better than you on paper, that you are the inferior team, but the last thing you want to do is give the inferior opponent extra motivation. And by picking them, you give them extra motivation.
So this idea didn't come from me. I want to be perfectly transparent about this, and I want you to know how I evolved, and that evolution will answer your question. Major League Baseball, I'm not even kidding you, Major League Baseball has thought of this idea.
What?
Major League Baseball had an idea years ago. I hated it. I own it, where the top seed in each league get to decide who they play in the opening round. And I hated it. And a part of the reason I hated it is I don't think matchups really exist as much in Major League Baseball as it does the NBA. I think baseball's flukier than the NBA, and I think it's very hokey. It's a very hokey idea. And you mentioned the motivation. Of course there'll be motivation. Everything I just described that makes it not work for Major League Baseball makes it amazing for the NBA.
How come?
Because the NBA, and I love basketball, you know the way I feel about this sport. I watch 82 Nets games. Obviously, I'm either a masochist or I love the sport. They are hokey. That's what the NBA is. Personal matchups, vendettas, you screwed me, you disrespected me. That's the NBA. The Indiana-Milwaukee series is going to be awesome. You want to know why? Anyone know why Indiana-Milwaukee is going to be awesome? Because Giannis Antetokounmpo is still pissed at the Pacers for stealing his basketball. Wasn't it from like that 50-point game or something like that?
Yes.
That is the pettiest, dumbest.
I forgot about that.
I just reminded you.
You did.
It's perfect in the NBA. And you know what? If the Chicago Bulls or the Indiana Pacers or the Orlando Magic got offended by it, that just adds to the series. That adds to the beauty of it. It's one of those things that not only makes sense from a competitive standpoint, it makes sense from an entertainment standpoint.
But so then what? You pick as the 1 and 2 seed.
Yeah.
Not the 3 and the 4 seed, just the 1 and 2 seed. You pick your opponent, and then what happens?
Then you play them. What do you mean what happens?
Yeah,
you
so
play
you
tiddlywinks,
beat them,
you play.
So you beat them, and then what's next? So you pick your second round opponent?
No. Then you put
what happens?
You put it in a bracket format after that. You pick your opponent in the first round. The bracket is set up. And look, a lot of years picking your opponent is going to be straight like the standings. But here's what happened in the NBA this year that's sort of unique, especially with Philadelphia. The Philadelphia 76ers are not your typical 7 seed. They're not. They've won 8 in a row. They win when Joel Embiid plays for the most part. I think they're 31-8 this season when Joel has played. But he had an injury and it was very fluky. Like the Philadelphia 76ers are a completely fluky 7 seed. If Joel Embiid is healthy, they're the 2 seed. It's a different discussion. And so it would allow teams to look past those flukes that created standings that don't properly represent what the standings should be. Look, the New York Knicks can beat the Philadelphia 76ers. They can beat the Miami Heat. I'm not telling you they can't, but what you know deep down is that this is a much more difficult matchup than Indiana or Orlando or Cleveland. And you got the 2 seed, and you won 50 games. Your reward for this great accomplishment, and it was a great accomplishment, is a booby prize.
Right.
And it works the same with Boston. Boston won 64 games. They may have to play Philly in the first round. They may have to play Miami in the first round.
And you're right about Philly being a false 7th seed because Joel Embiid only played, 39 games? So he missed 43 games? Missed 43 games.
I understand.
And they're still a 7th seed. And now that he's back, didn't rush it back, didn't try to come back too soon. He waited until he was fully healthy. Now he's not only healthy, he's rested. So he's not playing with heavy legs. So You add him there with Tyrese Maxey and Tobias Harris and all these other guys, Kyle Lowry, etc. It feels like they're a much better team than where they're seated. Well, and so whoever has them in the first round, it's honestly why I'd rather have Miami if I'm the Knicks.
No question.
In the first round.
No question.
Than the 76ers because the Joel Embiid, healthy MVP level Joel Embiid, he's a pain to deal with.
No question. Look, to me, and this is the other discussion we'll obviously have as we get closer to Wednesday night when they play, is Knick fans, non-Knick fans, we're all going to debate. Who would you rather play? I as an IBO, or even not as an IBO, as someone that doesn't like the New York Knicks, as the head of the coalition, I could tell you right now who I want you to face. Because I have an interest in it, just like you as Knick fans have an interest in it. I want you to play Philly because I think Philly could beat you. And by the way, I'm not alone. If you went on FanDuel right now and said, hey, I want to bet who comes out of the Eastern Conference. I want to place a bet. The Philadelphia 76ers have better odds than the New York Knicks. And you could say that's disrespect, and maybe it is. But the point is, they're good.
Yeah.
The point is they are not your typical 7 or 8 seed, and that is why, and it's not just what happened in the East. I'm just not going to bore you with what's happening in the West. When you finish with a top seed in the NBA in this era, you should get the choice. I believe in choice, Tiki.
Yeah.
The Boston Celtics and the New York Knicks earned that choice. And I think this is the perfect season to show you that, to have it right in front of you for everyone to see and say, wow, that actually makes sense. I didn't like it when it was an idea for baseball. I don't think it fits baseball. I wouldn't endorse it for baseball. But this kind of hokiness, this kind of decision-making, this kind of made-for-TV special, this kind of drama, this is the NBA.
Well, I mean, it's a way to bring different interest to the NBA. I just don't think it's going to – it's never going to fly. It's never going to fly because –
Why not?
Because they make you earn it, right? They make you earn your position, your positioning, I should say, in the standings and ultimately in the postseason. So the alternative, if you are the Knicks, who are getting – let's say screwed, but – they are positioned poorly because of who they have to play if from the play-in tournament, the 7-8 matchup in the first round of the play-in tournament. But the reality is, if the Knicks had just taken their foot off the gas for just a little bit, I know it's antithetical for Tom Thibodeau to do this, but if they had just, all right, we don't necessarily have to win this game. Let's just rest these guys and let's fall into the 3 seed and have a better matchup. You're still out of the Boston Celtics tier of the play of the tournament of the championship. Of
Once
the playoffs.
Cleveland lost, that was
still,
the case, yes.
Right, but still, it's like you could have sat in the 3.
Okay, but let me ask you about that. So for those that aren't aware, and they tried to explain it well on the broadcast, once Cleveland had lost their game to Charlotte, in which they did quit, by the way. I watched the last few minutes of that game. The Cleveland Cavaliers decided on an NBA court, we don't want to play basketball anymore. They made a business decision.
And they got booed.
And
By their home fans.
I totally get it because the paying customer isn't thinking that.
No.
Just like if the Knicks decided at Madison Square Garden yesterday, we don't want to play basketball anymore, the paying customer is not thinking about seed matchups. But once Cleveland lost and Milwaukee got their ass kicked by Orlando, the Knicks were in this spot where if they won, they're the 2 seed, the scenario they're in right now, playing either Philly or Miami. But if they lost, they'd be the 3 seed, they'd be matched up with Indiana. Do you think, as overtime began, Tom Thibodeau even knew the scenario?
Probably not.
Well,
Probably not.
That's question number 1 before we can answer question number 2. Because, look, I tweeted it out yesterday at the Met game. Hey, the Knicks are better off losing. And I would think that most Knicks fans would agree. But I guess the alternative is you want that home court in the second round guaranteed. But in terms of matchups, it's not even close. But did the head coach even know about it? Did the head coach even care about it?
Well, it's not what he does. It's not. He's not thinking above what's happening on the court. And that's why he's been such a great coach. For his first year here and obviously this year as well. 1, because he's been adaptable, but 2, it's all about the win. It's all about what is happening directly in front of you. He's never going to be that coach who's too smart for his own good. You know what I mean? We get these coaches sometimes that think, oh, if I do this and I position myself this way, and if I win this game and it positions us a certain way, then it gives me this advantage. He's not thinking about
that's JB Bickerstaff.
Exactly.
That's what he did with Cleveland.
He's not like Bickerstaff. JB Bickerstaff is probably being too smart by half, right? Tom Thibodeau is just like, all right, let's win. Period. All we got, guys, there's no agenda. Just win the basketball game. And it's why this Knicks team has been so interesting this season because you never know. Even when they were down players, you just never know how good they can be in any given game because of the mentality that their coach has. And you have to commend him for that. So to answer your question, he didn't know about the potential seeding. All he cared about was winning this game, just like he cared about that with every other game that he played this year.
And by the way, I respect the hell out of that. I respect the fact that, and the Chicago Bulls too. Now, Chicago's a little different in that they had nothing to gain, nothing to lose. Like nothing was going to change based on winning that game on Sunday afternoon. Right. But clearly, there was a difference in terms of what winning does for you and what losing does for you. And the Knicks, led by Tom Thibodeau, had no thought in their mind. And like I said to you, I don't even think he knew. He probably told his guys, don't even tell me. I don't care. I want to see my team win. I want to win that 50th game. I want to make the Knicks fans happy. But there should be a reward for that. That's why, I'm looking out for you guys. Like, once we know who their opponent is, Wednesday night, Thursday morning, we'll all make our predictions. We'll break down the matchups. But you have to admit this, Knicks fans. This is not an ideal first-round opponent.
But the Knicks fan
you can't argue otherwise.
But the Knicks fan doesn't care. The Knicks fan is saying, we can beat whoever.
But Tiki,
we don't have Boston in the first round.
I get that.
We can beat whoever.
I'm not saying you can't beat whoever, but we as sports fans, we're not conditioned to think about who we'd rather face. Like, what are you talking? Like, when the Mets are playing either the Cardinals or Braves in 2000 in the NLCS, and I'm sitting at Shea Stadium, I wanted the Cardinals to win because I knew the reality, which is, hey, maybe we could beat the Braves, but we have a better chance against St. Louis. That's who we are as sports fans.
Yeah, but
like, you'd rather face a team you have a better chance than.
Okay.
And I don't think anybody can dispute, not that you're going to lose. Don't get this twisted. This is just a more difficult road to hoe. That's all.
I think that the Knicks fan is saying, we're hot right now. We're playing great basketball. OG is back and seemingly healthy enough. And they just win with him no matter when he plays. If he plays, they win. What, they lost 3 games when he
20-3, I think is their record.
20-3. 23 games he's played. Now, he missed a ton, but 20-3 in the games that he's played, they believe that he is their X factor. And so it doesn't matter who the first-round opponent is, especially because they're hot right now. And in some ways, right, this is the alternative narrative on having to play the 76ers or the Heat in the first round. In some ways, because they're hot, because they have all of this momentum coming, because they got OG back and Jalen Brunson's, perpetually scoring 40 points a game, it's like it doesn't matter who the first round matchup is. Yes, I know it's a bad matchup with the 76ers or even potentially, playoff Butler, but still, we are hot. We can beat them. And then after you beat them, it gets easier. Right?
I understand.
It just the second round now becomes less daunting.
If you lose in the first round, remember who told you guys got screwed. It was the guy that you think hates you. We'll get to your calls coming up, 877-337-6666. Lot to discuss today. There's also a scandal brewing in the NBA that we need to touch on.